SSRS, find your way around, and also know how to create reports. So the aim of today is really to make sure that you can create table, matrix, and charts. I am recording that session, which means that you will be able to listen to that session again if you have missed something or if you cannot stay for the 2 hours. This will be available on the web forum and you will be able to watch that video again. I want to start with quick introduction. I already gave you the introduction back in April, so I want to go quickly on the introduction. Just a refresher. It's going to be a refresher on what SSRS is, and then we're going to dig into creating reports, and we're going to do that all together. So let's get started. Hopefully everybody will come in. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, SSRS stands for SQL Server Reporting Services, and this is that web-based user-generated reporting tool that will allow you to leverage the data that is collected into your live WITS VMS database. And it provides you the ability to build and publish reports from everywhere at any time, as long as you have an internet connection. Quick refresher on how SSRS works. This is the overview that I'm sharing here on my screen. SSRS is comprised of these three main components. We have the report viewer that is this web-based. So this is the component that allows you to view the published report within your web browser. And the web browser you have to use is Internet Explorer. SSRS is a Microsoft tool, so you need to use Internet Explorer, the same as you have to do with the WITS VMS. The report manager is also the web-based component that is the administrative component of SSRS that gives you the ability to control how the reports are organized and distributed. And this also is completed by an authorization level to give access to different users. The report builder is that third component here. And this is also web-based. And this one gives you the ability to build the reports. And this is the section we're going to spend most of the time today on. You see here there is the live WITS database. So this is your database where you're entering your data on a daily basis, or your providers are entering the data. Every night there is a backup of that data that is loaded into the reporting database. And this reporting database has a server that will allow you to create and publish your reports for SSRS. So what that means is that all of the data that you will be able to see through SSRS will be 1 day old. So you have a 24-hour difference of the data. So if you're entering the data today and you want to see that data in SSRS, you won't be able to. So just keep in mind that the data you have is 1 day old. So today I'm going to show you these three components again. I want to make sure that you can find your way around the report viewer and the report manager. I want to make sure you know how to set up subscriptions, because this is an important feature, and how to create snapshots. Then I want to make sure you know how to publish various reports. And we're going to do that in a second phase, where the learning objectives of today's course, as I said earlier, is to give you the basics on how to build a table, matrix, and a chart report. So I'm going to show you how to create them with different examples that are going to cover all of these basics. The first thing we need to do is to make sure that the users that are accessing SSRS have access to SSRS. And how you do that is through the WITS VMS. You have three types of users. You have the SSRS reader, user, and administrator. Reader will only be able to see the report, and user will be able to create and see the report. So within your staff, within your agency, you want to make sure you're giving access to your staff. Maybe some of your staff will only need to access the report viewer just to run the report. Some of you will want to be users. You will want to create these reports. So you need to make sure that in the WITS VMS, you are giving that access to you and to your staff in order to access SSRS. Accessing SSRS is easy. You are going to a login page that is going to look like that. You are using the same login and password as the one you have in production, except for Kevin and Julie, who have a specific username and password. So here today I'm going to show you the demo site, but each of you will have, you already have the login, the URL for your instance. So you all know your URL, you enter your username and your password. Again, only users that have one of these two roles, SSRS cross-agency reader or SSRS cross-agency user, will be able to log in to SSRS with the production login and password. I just logged in, and here I can see the home page, and this is the report viewer. So that report viewer, you see that it's accessible through Internet Explorer, and it will allow me to view the reports that have been created. I can see there are different folders. There is a folder hierarchy right here in my home page. You will be able to create folders to save your reports and organize the reports the way you want it to be organized for your instance. I'm going to go into that folder, and I'm going to create a new folder for today. So I'm clicking on New Folder, and I'm going to call it August 16th, very original, so that we can save all of the reports that we create today in that new folder. I click OK, and now I see that I have a new folder created here. If I click on Show Details here on the side, I can see that I have that folder that was just created by me. If I click on it, I can see the content. There is nothing in that folder, so I'm going to go back to the root. And here I can see different reports that have been created. I'm going to click on one of the reports in order to run that report. So I just click on the name. When I click on the name of the report, I can see with the navigation where I am in the ATL folder, and I'm looking at the Employment Comparison Intake and Discharge GPRA report. So this is where I am. I clicked on the report, and it generated the report for me. So this is what the report looks like. I am able to export that report in Excel. I have all of these different formats that I can select. I selected Excel, and then I click Export. And here we go, we have the report showing Excel. So you see, I was able to export to Excel. If I go into the properties, I can change the name of that report if I don't like the way it looks like. I can create a linked report. Creating a linked report is just creating a copy of the report. It creates a copy of the report, and I can save it in any other folder if I want to. I can delete the report, or I can move it to another folder. So if I click on the Move link or button, then I'm given the whole hierarchy of my site, and I can choose to move my report in another folder. So here I'm going to move it to the August 16th folder. I can also create snapshots for my report. Here I see I have 2 snapshots. I can create a new one. It was easy. I just clicked on New Snapshot. What that did is that it took the date and the time that I have created that snapshot. That means that if I want to go back to a previous version of the report, I will be able to go in the History tab and rerun the report as of 10:26 this morning. You just click on the time, and then it shows you the results of the report as of that day and time. This is an interesting feature if you know that the data is going to change and you want to go back to what the data was last month. For example, I know some of you are interested in the compliance rate for your provider. So you can create your report that will have the compliance rate and create a snapshot every month. And you can go back to what was the compliance rate of that provider last month or last year or 3 months ago. And you just click here. So you can manually create these snapshots, or you can schedule the snapshot. So if I go back to Property, I click on History, and I can select here, use the following schedule to add snapshots to report history. I can configure that history. I want the system to automatically create a snapshot for me every day of the week, or 1 day of the week, or once a month on the first Monday of every month. So I can set up that schedule, and then I will be able to go in the History tab and see all of these snapshots that have been created for me. So I know I showed you that last time, but I want to make sure you find your way around. The next step that I want to make sure everybody understands is the subscription. So it's the next tab. I'm still within my report. It's Employment Comparison Report. I click on the Subscriptions tab. There are no subscriptions, so I'm going to create a new one. I click on New Subscription, and I'm going to deliver that subscription by email, and I'm going to write the email address. So I want to send one to myself, or I want to send one to my colleague. I just write the email address. I can send it to several people. I can CC, blind copy, you know. And the subject of that email is always going to be the name of the report, so the one we see at the top, and the time it was executed. If you don't like that subject, you can change it and have whatever you want in it. The report can be included as a Word, Excel, PDF, you know, one of these file formats. And a link can be included. So you can choose to have both or only one. I just want to include a link That means that it's just going to be selecting that URL at the top here. This link will be added to the content of the email. So if you click on it, the person who receives the email can click on it and see the report. That person needs to have access to SSRS though. And have different level of priority and have a comment. For your subscription, once you have set up the recipient of that subscription, you can set up a schedule. So that automatically every Monday of every week, so you see you have these different frequencies that you can choose. Every Monday of every week at 7 a.m., I want to send an email to these two recipients of the subscription. This will begin as of today, and I can put an end date if I want on that schedule. I know that it's something that I need for the next 3 months. So I click OK. I verify everything looks good. Oops. I made a mistake in the email address, so I'm going to go back into my report and set up my subscription again. It is easy enough that I can do it again. I want to receive it in Excel. I'm fine with that. I'm going to have every Monday. I'm going to stop it end of October. Whew, it worked. So now I see that I have one subscription that has been set up. When you go on the subscriptions tab for the report, you can see all of the subscriptions that have been created for the report. You can always click on edit and see what was created and make any edits as necessary. So that's the report viewer, where you can go to a folder, look at the reports that are in there, click on it, run the report on the View tab, export it to Excel. You can use some filters as well. Look at the Properties tab to change the name, look at the history to see the snapshots, and look or set up some subscriptions for you and for your staff, whoever needs to receive these reports. If I click on a report that has some filters, some search criteria, it is going to show that way. I will have to apply the filter before I can run the report. I can search agency name. The date is pre-populated for me, but I can change that. I want to see everything from the 1st of December until today. And I click on View Report. And now it's generating the report for me. It is giving me the filter that I'm using for that report. It's all of the encounters for the agency name that are prompted, and for the encounters that were created on or before, on 12/1 or before 8/16. So this is the report viewer. This one is very easy. The reports are created. I just have to create them. I just have to run them, to execute them and see the results. I can export, I can snapshot, do the history, and I can do subscriptions. Do you have any questions about these? Okay, so let's get started then. Let's go into the report builder, which is the fun part of that training. The report builder can be accessed from the report viewer report manager. So I'm going to click on that link here. You can find that when you log in on the home page and pretty much on every folder. So I click on report builder. Remember, only user that has the SSRS user role will be able to see report builder. If you have SSRS, yes?
I'm sorry, this is Latanja. Before you move on to the report builder, I just come up with a question on the
Sure, go ahead.
So when you do your subscriptions, like if you have it where you can select it by agency, can you set up a subscription to send agency just that agency their information once a week?
Yes, so you will have to set up a subscription for each agency. So if I go back to that
once you run the report and select that agency, then you set up the subscription and you do that for each agency?
Yes, let me show you how to do that. If I go back to the report I was in, this encounter service, I'm going to subscriptions. And when I'm setting up my subscription, you put the email address of that one person at that agency. And here you can use the parameter here. And you're going to select one of them.
Okay.
It's your provider one. So you make sure, you want to be very careful when you do that, right? You want to make sure that the agency you're selecting is the one that goes with that email address.
Yes, thank you.
Right. So that's how you can do that. So for each of your providers, you will create a new subscription record.
Okay, thanks.
So this is an easy way to share the data with your providers, even if the providers don't have access to SSRS. It is a good feature, but everybody has to be very careful about that to make sure that you're not making a mistake in the email address that you enter in here, because you could be sending some information to another provider agency. Also, when you do your reports, just use unique client number instead of using client names. Try to not use any identifying information, so that if by mistake this report is sent to the wrong email address, at least there is no identifying information in the report.
Thank you.
My pleasure. I'm clicking on Report Builder to start the Report Builder. Report Builder is the client-side application that is used to create and design these ad hoc reports that we have seen. I need to log in again. This is, again, my production username and password. So this reporting model we have reporting models that are built on top of the database tables to make the data more human readable. So we will be able to build a report on top of these models. The data source models that are set up, we have agency and cross-agency models. Most of you have cross-agency models, which means that you are accessing the data for all of the agencies because you are at the state level, so you will be able to run reports for all of the agencies. So I'm selecting the model. And with this report builder, I am able to create table, metrics, and chart reports. And to get started, I need to select a report layout. I'm going to start with the table for now. So the report builder looks like that. Maybe I should make that a little bigger. A little smaller. If the screen is too small for you guys, you should have something in the corner, an icon on the corner of your page to increase the percentage of the screen. I am not able to do that on my side, but I believe you guys can do that. So the report builder is using fields to build a report, and the fields are organized by groups called entities, which is what we have on the side here. Coco, with our SSRS DBA, creates these entities for you. You may not have met Coco yet, but you will very soon. If you start using SSRS, she will be a great help. So she builds all of these entities, and entities are our SSRS views that create the relationship between two or more fields. For example, a client may have one or several addresses, right? So how do we make the relationship between a client and these many addresses? This is what Coco is building our DBA. She is building the correct views that are going to do the right linkage and that will help you return the right data in your report. These entities are categorized. You have different categories that are in these different folders. So you want to look at which entity you want to start from, which category. So for the data that I'm looking into building a report for, I'm going to, let's say let's go into the GIPRA entity, which is one that I know a lot of you want to build a report on. So I'm going to select the entity. I'm going to select the GIPRA entity. And when I'm selecting an entity, then it is giving me on the panel underneath all of the fields that are related to that entity. I see the first one here is the number of GIPRAs. These fields that are like this with the yellow dots, these are fields that are generated by SSRS. They are usually calculation fields, and these are SSRS fields. So here it gives me the number of GIPRAs. What I can do is I can click on that field. I can drag my mouse into that section that is like gray solid, and then I release, and boom, I have added my first column in my report, which is number of GIPRAs. I just added that field that is number of GIPRAs, and I would like to rename it. So I just click on it, and I can change, and I can say number of GIPRA. I can make it a little wider. Number of GIPRA interviews. So I just have renamed that field, and I can make it bigger, wider. So here we go. I have used that first field. The fact that that field is added to my report is now bold. It shows bold in the fields column. So I know where it's coming from. I see at the top that I am in the context of the GIPRA entity. I am within that entity, and I will be able to drill down and look at the data within a GIPRA. The report I want to do now, I want to see how many intake, discharge, and follow-up DPRA I have in my system. So what I want to look is find the type of interviews. I'm going down to record management. You see these different categories here. They are corresponding more or less to the menus that you have on the screen. On the DPRA screen, you have record management, plan services, demographics, and things like that. So this is kind of grouped that way so that you can find your way around and find the questions, the fields of the DPRA. Under record management, I know that I have the type of interview. So I'm selecting the DPRA interview type, and I'm going to bring it right here, right before the number of DPRA interviews. So here I'm going to rename that to be type of interview. I have two fields. So I can enter a title up here. I can put a title on my report. You can type whatever you want. I'm going to call it DPRA count. You see, I can use a different font. If I don't like this one, I can change the color. You probably don't need me to show you how to do that, but you can play with that, and you can select the report and change the color. So we're going to have, it's already blue actually. So I'm going to select green. Ooh, pretty. For my total, I want that in a lighter green. Yes, I like green. This is a simple report, right? It's the type of interview and the number of interviews. I want to see if what I've done is right. What I do is I click on the Run Report link up here. I click on Run Report, and then it is going to give me what the report would look like if I was to save that report and make it available to report viewer. So this is just a try, and I suggest that you always try your report before you save it. See if it looks right. You probably know the number of DPRAs that you have already. So you want to make sure that that number is kind of consistent with the data that you have in the system. So start with a simple query. This is a simple one where I have the type of interview, so 6 months follow-up, discharge and intake, and the number of DPRA interviews. I like the report. I like the way it looks. So now I'm going to save that report. I click on the Save icon, or I go to File, Save. I want to find the folder where I'm going to save that report. So here what I want to do is go back to the root of my report server. And it's going to bring me to the home page folder. And then I can select a folder, cross-agency, ATR, and here is the folder we created today. Here we go. I have created my first report. If I go back to the report manager, I can go back to that cross-agency folder, ATR, and today, and I can see now that that report is actually available for whoever has access to that folder. If I click on DPRA count, it is giving me my nice green report. So then from there I can go in and change. I didn't like the name that I gave it, so I can change it. I can say how many interviews, Luca interviews have been completed. That's the name of my report. It's too long. Oh, I have a nice. So that's the name of that. My report has been changed. Okay. Let's create another report. If I want to create a new report, I click, here like you have in Word, or I can click File, New. When I do that, then I will be able to select the model that I want and the layout. I'm going to do another table. And I'm going to do a report that I know some of you already have or like to have, which is to see all of the services that have been adjudicated by agency and client. So if I want to see all of the services that have been adjudicated, I want to think about, okay, where am I going to find that data in SSRS? Adjudication, this is billing, right? So you always want to ask yourself that question before you get started. Where am I going to find that data? Adjudication is most likely going to be in the billing category. So I'm in that billing category, and I'm going under pay or service adjudication. This is the entity that I know I'm going to build my report from. Because what I want to see is by adjudicated date, so you see I drill down to date. I want to see each time I'm doing an adjudication, which provider, which service and which client does that include. So I just selected adjudicated date, and you see now I'm in the context of that pay or service adjudication entity. So I'm going to go through my fields and select the fields that I think are interesting for me in my report. I will want to find the, let's see what I have. Oh, I have provider agency name here. So I'm clicking on it and I'm bringing it as my second column. Then I have the unique client number. I want to put that here. Then I want to know the service. So you see I just select my columns and I add them one after the other in there. And then maybe I want to see the dollar amount, right? So let me see what I have in terms of dollar amount. The total paid amount. I like that. So here I have created a report that gives me the adjudicated services by agency and client, right? If I click on Run the Report, it is giving me for the adjudication date, the name of the provider agency, the name of the unique client number, the service, and the dollar amount. The dollar amount has 4 digits. I don't like that. So I'm going to do a right click on the cell here and I'm clicking on Format, and I will change that to 2 decimals. And I'm going to do that for each of the totals. You see how I have all of these subtotals here? This is going to give me a total by service, client, provider agency, and adjudicated date. If I don't want one of these subtotals because it's too many, I can just do a right click and I uncheck that show subtotal link here. So I remove them all. So if I do that under the last column, it's going to remove all of the subtotals. If I just go under the unique client number, then it's just going to remove the one for client. If I do under service, it just removes the one for service. So let me click on Run Report, and now here we have just one total by agency. So it's actually by adjudication date. I do right click and I add them back. Easy, right? Something that is very important about these tables is that the more columns you add, the more filtering you're going to have. Here, I'm starting with the adjudicated date. So everything is grouped by adjudicated date. I see all of the data that was adjudicated on that date. Then for that adjudication date, it is then grouped by provider, then by client, then by service. If I move the adjudicated date around, let's put the adjudicated date after the provider agency. Now my report is going to be different. Right? Now it is going to show me by provider agency all of the adjudications that happened and which client, which service, and which dollar amount. So the order of the columns are very important. And the more columns you add, the more filtering you're going to have at the end. You know, I can do the same. I can maybe put adjudication date back and put service right after adjudicated date. So the second level of grouping is going to be by service. So then it is going to give me by service all of the provider agencies and then the clients for that provider agency. Or I can have the service first. If all of that depends on what kind of report you want to create. So you always want to think about what do I want to achieve. Do I want to see by service, when it was adjudicated, which agency and which client? We're going to also add more fields. Let's see, we have this ATR category indicator. I'm going to add that here. This is what you have on the service that says, is that a treatment or recovery service? So I just added and I selected that field and I dragged it and dropped it right here in the middle. I click on Run Report and now I have another column, the recovery and the treatment services per client and the dollar amount. So it adds another level of grouping. I can put my indicator at the beginning, and then I have all of the recovery and then all of the treatment services. And I can move things around and run the report and see what it looks like. So play with that, add your columns, think about what you want to achieve, add your columns, move them around, and always click on Design Report to see what the report looks like. That is very important. If you don't like one of these columns that you added, you just do right-click on that column and you click on delete. Now that field is gone. So it's easy to add and easy to remove. So this is a report that is probably what you guys are going to start doing. After that card, you're going to start creating tables because that's the easiest. So you will be able to select your entity, think about where you think the data is going to be. If what you want is each time I adjudicate, I want to see for all of my invoices which services were included in that. Or what did the provider receive? How much money did they receive? So you can move things around and see what it looks like. So let's save that report.
Marion, if
yes.
I'm not really sure where to find what I'm looking for, are there search capabilities?
I don't believe so. Let me check. No, there is no search capabilities. You want to, okay, let me save that. So I'm saving that in my folder. If I want to create a new report, Pete, I'm going to start a new one, and it gives me, in a second, all of my entities that are in there. So what you will want to do is look within these categories. You know, I can teach you how to use SSRS for hours and hours, but the key, and you will hear me saying that a lot, is for you to know where the data is actually collected in the WITS VMS, in your instance. We were talking about adjudication in a minute. We know that this is billing. So you want to first look at the categories. Once you're within the category, then you can look at things that make sense to you. Like if you want to do something for services, you want to see all of the services that you have set up as treatment or recovery. Then you will go under service. If you want to work on the GIPRA, or if you want to work on vouchers, you're just going to go to the GIPRA. This is my GIPRA category. And then I know that I want to do I want to count the number of GIPRA intakes that I have. So if I want to do that, I'm going to go into the GIPRA intake entity.
You don't look at intake and then find the GIPRA in there. Because there's also one that says intake. If I'm looking for intakes, I would start at intakes. That will make sense to me. Or are they sorted all kinds of different ways?
Intake is the intake screen in WITS. You know, in WITS you have the intake, which is the beginning of the episode.
Right.
The GIPRA intake is the GIPRA interview that has the intake interview type.
Okay.
So it's very important if you know what you have. Think about the menu.
Right, and I'm still learning a lot, so that's why it would be nice to have a search capability, so you can have the different. if you know intake, but you're not really sure what kind of where or type or stuff, and it would be very nice to have that, but obviously it's not there. So.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that I would like to have in SSRS, but we are dependent on Microsoft. And so, yeah, there is not a search in here. I don't think so.
Okay.
But if you look at these categories, I mean, if you're doing a GIPRA intake, that's under the GIPRA. The intake one is going to be if you want to look at the referral source that you have in your intake screen or the intake date or whichever information you want to look at into the intake screen. So think about the screens that you have. So if I want to see the number of GIPRA intakes that I have, you know, I click GIPRA intakes, I double click, and I put that here. Now it's my first column. I want to see by agency the number of GIPRA intakes that I have. I look at it, I run the report, it gives me for all of my agencies the GIPRA intake interviews. Now I would like, here it's giving me all of my GIPRA intakes. Maybe what I want to do is to see all of the GIPRA intakes that have been created last month. So to do that, I need to add a filter or search criteria by date. I can go at the top here and use that filter button. So I click on the filter, and here I can add filters to my report. I'm going to look at that date category, and I'm going to select the interview date. So I can drag and drop and double click. Also brings me there. So I want to create my date range search criteria. I do a right click or click on it, I guess right click, and I click prompt. When I do that, it brings this question mark right next to the field, which means that this is going to be asked to the end user each time they want to run the report. They will need to select a date range. They need to select a date. So I want to do a date range. So it's going to be the interview date is going to be on or after a specific date. And I have the interview date again because I want it to be a date range. So it's going to be between two dates, the start date and the end date that I run the report for. I can have some default values in there if I know that I always run that for every month. I can click on relative date, and I can set the beginning of my search to always be the first day of the month, and the end date to be the last day of the month. I click OK, and now it doesn't find anything with that data that I have predefined, but as the end user will be able to change that. So I can change that to 2010. I'm on the demo site, so there is not much data in there. Not as much as you guys have on your production site. Because I know you have a lot of data now. So I have that search criteria that I can search for a date. You can add some other filters if you want to see the report by agency, and that will be answering to Latanja question earlier, where we want to send that report to providers. So we want to have a search criteria by provider agency. So I can go into my GIPRA entity. And here I can see all of the fields that I have in my GIPRA, and I know that one of the first one is the agency name. So I'm bringing that here. I can have that as a prompt also where it's asked, and the user can select in a list.
The dentist appointment this afternoon.
I click OK, and now I see my interview date. And now I have a search by agency name. I can select one of them, I can select them all, or I can select only a few of them. And then I want to make sure I click View Report. And now it's giving me the results of that report for these 3 agencies. So here I have just used the filter on my report. I want to make sure I'm saving that report. Going back to the report server, to my root. Finding my folder. Here it is. So number your intakes per agency. That's the way I call it. So my report has been saved, and if I go back to the report manager, to my folder, now I can see that I have that report created right here. I click on the report, and here we go. We have the date that is pre-populated. I can change that to 2010 because I know there is no data. And here I can use the search criteria to select an agency. I select them all, and I click on View Report. You see that here it says interview date and interview date 1. That's not very nice. So you have a way of changing that, and you can change that through the Properties tab. And here, notice that I am back in the Report Manager. I'm not in the Report Builder anymore. So I click on Properties and Parameters, and here I can change. I can override the default that we had set up, and I can also change the date. So usually when people run reports, they like to see it written with start date and end date. This is the start date and end date of your search, right? I'm just changing that to that. And for agency name, I can change that to select an agency. Now when I look at the report, I see start date, end date, so that the user knows that that's when the report is going to run for, and select an agency. Please go ahead and select agencies and view the report. And then if you were to do a subscription on that one, you will click on subscription. You will enter the email, right? And then you will select for which agency you want to send that report. Here will be for that one agency. Does it make sense? I hope it does.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Good, thanks. Okay, so let's create another report.
Oh, I don't know.
So I'm going to show you all of these different features that are available to you in SSRS. I did show you the tables, which was something important, seeing these columns and the fact that each column you have is going to group by, you have the totals. I'll show you how to add filters. I showed you how to use these SSRS fields that are calculated. So you know already a lot of things. You can do a lot of things with that. Now I'm going to show you another report, and I'm going to start as a table. And the report will be to look at the voucher expenditure. And I'm going to show you that as a table and the exact same report as a bar chart. But I will show you how you can do the same thing in different formats. And then you're going to choose, when you build your own reports, which format works best for you. So I want to do the voucher expenditure. So when I'm saying that, which category do you think I'm going to go to? Okay, voucher. That's an easy one. They should all be easy, but so I'm going to be into my voucher, and you see that I have two entities in the voucher: authorization header and authorization service. It says authorization here because some of you started vouchers authorization, and in the database it's called authorization, but they are grouped under the voucher category. So if you need that to be changed, we can change that to voucher. That makes more sense to you, but that's voucher and authorization is the exact same thing. The header is just that screen. When you look at the screen, if you can visualize it in your head, where you have the plan, the contract, the start date, end date, intake. The authorization service is then that screen where you add services to a voucher. So these are the two screens that are in two different entities. I think on my header I have all of the things that I need for today. So I'm going through the header, and I would want to see, I said I wanted to see the voucher service expenditure. So, what do you think I want to see? The service, right? So, oops. So I'm going to select the service name. By the end of this training, I will make you participate, guys. So I want a service name, and for each of my services, I want to see the total authorized, total expended, and total encumbered. You see, I just clicked on it. I did double click, and by doing double click, it just adds them as another column. I see the three that I have selected, the four. They are showing in bold right now. These fields that are here, that was one of the first fields that we saw today, that are with these yellow dots. These are fields that are calculated by SSRS. So the total is there. You can use that total. I can run the report, and here's what the report looks like. For each service, I know how much is authorized, encumbered, and expended. Easy report that I'm going to save. You see how easy it is to create a report?
If you know where to go.
I wanted to see how much was authorized, encumbered, and expended. I went into my voucher entity. We're going to do several reports so that you can find your way around. So I'm going to call it voucher service expenditure. Okay, now I want to create the same report, exact same way, but it is going to be a chart. So I'm clicking on, create a new report, file, new. I'm in my model, and the report layout that I'm selecting is chart. Clicking OK. So now my report builder looks a little different. Now I have 3 data-specific regions that I can drop fields in. I have the data value, the series, and the category. And I can do different types of charts. If I do a right-click, I can click on chart type, and I can have columns, bars, area, line, pie, and donut. The one I'm going to do today is just going to be, a simple bar. I want to create the same report, which was my voucher service expenditure. So I'm going to build it the exact same way. I'm going to go to my voucher category, my authorization service, and you remember what I had in there? The service name. The service is going to be my category, so my service is going to show here in my report. And then I want my total dollar amount, right? So I want the total authorized, I'm dragging it and dropping it here, encumbered, expended. I do double click, it adds it there. It's the same way as the table. I can resize that chart, making it look bigger, like that. If I do a right click, I can change, for example, the title of that chart. You see here it says chart title. So I'm going to click on chart options. The title is going to be the same, voucher service expenditure. I can show the legend or not, but I'm choosing to show the legend. So I'm clicking OK. Let's look what that report looks like, because I'm not very sure what it's going to look like, so I want to see. I click on Run Report right up here. Oops. This is what it looks like. I see that I have more authorized, encumbered, and expended. This is the dollar amount. Maybe I want to change that chart. Now, I think it would be better if it's stacked. So I'm going to run that report. And so now it's giving me by service with these different colors, how much is authorized, encumbered, and expended for each of the services. So I can make it bigger. You see, you can change that. And I can run that report, and then I can compare it with the other report that I created. I'm going to the report manager, and I'm going to go back to my folder. And I have that voucher service expenditure. So when you see that housing has actually all of that money unauthorized, and maybe that's obvious on that report. But for some people, and you know, it's more difficult to have it that way. Like visually, I can see where all of the money is currently authorized. So I know there's probably a problem here. We're authorizing all that money, but it's not used. That means that all of that money is allocated to that service, and that's you know, some indicators that you can look at. So this is a visual way of looking at your data. I'm going to save that report. Always save your report. Always. SSRS, I think there is a timeout feature that is built in there. So if you have been playing with the system for a long time and you didn't save, you may be losing your report. So save as often as you can. This can be frustrating sometimes. Frustrating. So I'm going to save that. And this one is the stack graph. So now I know the difference between my two reports. So congratulations, you've done your first graph.
Yay.
Yay. We're going to do another one quickly. You know, the secret with SSRS, I told you earlier, is to know where the data is in WITS. And then the other thing is to practice, practice, practice. So we're going to do another one. I'm going to do a pie chart this time. So I go to chart type, and I'm going to select the simple pie to get started. We can look in the GIPRA. There is a lot of data in the GIPRA that we can do some very nice stuff with. I'm going to look at the GIPRA intake, and let's look at the education at intake. So I know there is a question about education at intake of the GIPRA. So I'm going to the GIPRA intake entity. Easy. And I know that this is asked under the education/employment screen. So I'm clicking here. And I'm going to select my education. And I'm going to have the number of GIPRA intake. So how many intake, how many clients answer these education questions in the GIPRA intake. So I always want to look at it. I'm going to run the report, and this is what it looks like. It is too small, so I'm making it bigger. I also want it to look nicer, so I can select a background. I can have some black background. Look at that. I can go back to my chart options, and I can enter a title, and I'm going to have education at GIPRA intake. And I can choose the font of my title. So it's going to be Vaseline, and it's going to be white and 18. And my legend also, we need to have a format. It's going to be the same font, and it's going to be the white color so that I can see it. Let's run the report and see what it looks like. Ooh, this is the report, and this is what was answered in your GIPRA intake for the education. So you have your legend and the nice colors. Now you know that you want to do the same thing for employment. So what you can do is just right-click on education, and you're going to delete it. And you can replace that with employment. And I can just go back to my chart options, and now I'm going to have to change my title. And it's not going to be education, but employment. I run the report to see what it looks like.
Marion, can you add values to those?
Yes, I can. You mean you want to see how many in the middle?
Yes, please.
Yep. So to do that, you do the one in the middle that I haven't shown you yet. So when you do right-click, you have the chart type, the chart options for your legend and title. And the data series is what I'm going to click on. So I'm going to format this data series, and I can show the point labels. So I'm just show them, and now it's going to show in the middle.
And are those percentages or actual numbers?
It's the numbers. You see here what I wanted was the number of GIPRA intakes, right?
And could you convert those to percentages?
You will need to create a field that will be a percentage that you put at the top here.
Okay.
Here the field that I have added was a total number of GIPRA interviews. So it's pretty much the number of clients who answered these questions at GIPRA intake. So here we had 6 clients who said that they were unemployed and looking for work. So it's the number of clients, number of GIPRAs. So here you have another nice chart that was pretty easy to create. I'm saving it as a habit. And here I have my nice pie chart. Let's create another chart, maybe the last one, but let's create another chart to show you what we can do. It's always fun to do charts, I think. The one I want to do now is going to be exploded. And also, I want to show you how you can do your chart can have 3D effect. So I just went to the chart options, 3D effect, and I checked that. So now I'm going to have a 3D chart, a 3D pie. I'm always trying to find ideas for reports. I'm going to show you what I want to see is by service how many clients I have. So I will do that based on the voucher service. So I have vouchers that have services in it, and I want to see how many clients have vouchers for these services. So if I do that, you're going to tell me on which entity I'm going to go. Voucher service. No one is following. Are you falling asleep? Wow, thanks guys. Okay, so I'm showing you that very cool chart, and hopefully you're going to think it's as cool as I think it is. So I want to look at the authorization services and how many clients are receiving these services. So, service name, I'm putting that name right here. And I know that some of you are on mute. I'm not offended, don't worry. So I'm putting the service name, and I want the number of clients. And here I want to introduce you to something new that I haven't showed you yet, is the way of creating a new field in SSRS. So here you have different fields that are already in there, and these are the fields that are in your database. But here I want to create a new one because what I want to do is just the number of clients that are receiving services. A client may have one or several vouchers, right? So if I am just adding the number of authorization services, it is just going to give me the number of vouchers that have that service. So if the client has more than one voucher, then the client is going to be counted more than once. So what I want to do is I want to create an unduplicated client count. And to do that, I can create a new field. So I just need to click on that icon right here next to fields. That would allow me to create a new field, and I can define any kind of formula I want for that field. And if we have time today, I'm going to show you many more formulas. But let's stick to the basics for right now. I want to create an unduplicated client count. That's the name that I'm giving to that field. I can look at the functions, and here are all of the different functions that I can use to create a new field. If you are familiar with Excel, all of these functions should be very familiar to you. You can use if conditions, the logical, the operators, the aggregate. So the one I want to use now is the count listing, because I want a unique count of clients. So I'm selecting count distinct. I just double click, and now it is bringing me this in the formula section. I go back to my field. I'm going to make that a little bigger. So here I see that I'm within my authorization service entity, and these are the fields that I can select. So I know I have to put an aggregate in there. And the one I want is the unique client number. So I just double click, and now I see that the formula for that new field is going to be a count distinct on the unique client number. That's my new field. I click OK, and now I see that on my list of fields available for me to select for my report, I can see the unduplicated client count as a new field. So I'm just dragging that and dropping that up here. So now it's going to be the number of clients that are receiving these services. I'm making it a little bigger, and I'm clicking on Run Report. Here's what the report looks like. I can do what we talked with Lusandra earlier, just to add the labels to see the number of clients. I'm going to click on Run Report, and now I know that I have 12 clients that are receiving spiritual support, so that you can see the services that are the most used for your program. I need to change the title. Client count by service. Okay. And now that you know, you can add filters. I know you know how to do that now. I just click on that filter here, and I'm going to add a filter by agency. You know, look at the fields that are available to you, and I want to be able to display that graph for each agency. So it's going to be in a list, and I will be able to prompt and select an agency and change the agency each time I run the report. I click OK. So now when I run the report, I can select one agency, click on View Report, and now I can see the client count for that agency. So all of the things that you've learned for the columns about the filters, the entities, the fields, the new fields, all of that applies for each and every type of report that you're going to create. I'm going to save that report again. You've seen me doing that so many times that now you will definitely know how to save a report, which is something very important. Oops. choosing my folder. Okay, now let's look at the third category, the third type of report that you can create, and this is a matrix. So matrix is also a very cool way to create reports. Yes, it is. So I'm selecting that layout, and you will see that the matrix reports are providing you specific regions as guidelines or where to put the data. You have 3 data types here. You have the columns, the groups, and the totals. So you always have the groups as a row, the groups are columns as well, and in the middle you have totals. So you will use the matrix each time you want to do a count, a total, a calculation. Let's continue with the GIPRA. What I want to look at the housing type per client per agency. So the number of clients and so housing type by agency. That would be, we could do also the same as, the employment and the education that we just did with the chart. We can go into the GIPRA. I will go into the GIPRA intake. And we can select the same as we did earlier. So we can do education. You know how to find that now. So I'm looking at education, and I'm going to drag that into the column. And then I want to see by agency. So I go back to record management. I'm under the GIPRA intake, record management, and I'm selecting agency name, and I'm dragging that here. And what I want to put in the middle is the total. So I want to see the total number of clients that answered these education questions at GIPRA intake. So I'm just going back to my root, and I'm putting the number of GIPRA intake. Always put a number in the middle, because it's going to calculate it for you. If I click on Run Report, now this is what my report looks like. I'm going back to design and making it a little larger. So I can see by agency the clients who answered, that they were in 4th grade for their education level. If I don't like education, I want to do housing type. As I said earlier, I just click on it, delete, and I'm going to go to family and living, and this is where I can find housing type. So you can pretty much create this report for any type of information you want to look at in the GIPRA, right? You just go through your categories. Here I want to see housing type. Let's see what the report looks like. So I can see by agency the type of housing that the client answered. It is too small, so I'm going to make it a little bigger. So I always have the total at the bottom, and then I know for each agency the number of clients that answered each value. The same applies. I can have the title, a report, and save it. So this is a matrix. and create another one to show you how it works. Yeah, we can do some other matrix. There are a lot of different ideas on how to make that happen. So I'm going to create another matrix. I'm going to show you the number of clients by mass, gender, and ethnicity. So, do you know where I can find the mass, gender, and ethnicity? In WITS VMS? It's on the GIPRA.
Sorry, what was the question again?
Where I can find the mass flag, the gender, the ethnicity, we have all of that on the GIPRA. If I go under the GIPRA intake and the demographics, I have the ethnicity, which is like Hispanic or Latino indicator that I can put here. If in demographics, I also have the gender that I'm putting here, and I'm adding another one in there, which is that mass flag. When I go to the record management, the first page of the GIPRA, I know if the client is a mass user or not. So I'm selecting that and I'm putting that here. And I need to put a total in the middle, so I'm putting the total number of GIPRA intake. Let's make that bigger for everybody to see. If no one is asleep. I click Run Report. And so here what it's doing is that it's looking first at the methamphetamine indicator. So it's going to give you by ethnicity the number of meth users. So here we have 3 that are not Hispanic Latino that are meth users. Okay? And then if you click on the plus here, it is going to give you the drill down between male and female. So these matrix are a way for you to do some grouping and some calculation about how many clients are within that category, that group, answer this question in the GIPRA. So here we had it based on that mass flag. I can choose to change that order and have the gender first. You see, I just moved the mass to the end. So now when I run the report, it is grouped by male, female, or whoever refused to give their gender. And then when I click plus, I see the math and non-math users for that Hispanic Latino, for that ethnicity. Okay? I can also choose to bring that flag down in the row section. So this is just a matter of how you want your data to be organized and how the numbers make sense to you. If I run the report, now it's always for female and male, and refuse as the column. And then you can look at the, for the ethnicity, the drill down of the math users. So I use these 3 data elements and I move them around to display the numbers differently, but it's still the same number of clients. You like that? Okay, I'm going to continue. Good. I'm going to continue because I want to give you, as I was saying, you practice is the key. So I'm going to give you more examples, and hopefully you're going to learn from that. From that report, I have here the number of clients. What I would like to do now is look at the average age of clients. So what I have in the middle here is the number of GIPRA intake. I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to choose to put the age in the middle instead of the number of clients, which is another way of having totals in that report. So the age is actually stored at the client level, the client profile. So if I'm currently in that GIPRA intake, the fact that I'm in that GIPRA intake, I need to be able to go up to my client. So you see here there are some connections that are happening, this relationship between the GIPRA intake and the client. This connection is done by the client ID. So if I'm clicking on that GIPRA intake by client ID, I am now in the context of, I'm still in the context of the GIPRA intake, but I can find some client demographic information as they are saved in the client profile of the client. For the age, I have this field that is a field that is generated by SSRS for you. If you click on the plus sign, it gives you what SSRS has calculated. They have the max age, the minimum age, the average, and the number of ages. So I'm going to take advantage of this field that SSRS has built for me, and I'm going to select the average age. And this is the one that I'm going to drag and drop in my total section. So now I have this average age in the middle of my report. So when I click on Run Report, I see the average age. It has too many zeros in there. So I'm going to go back to design the report, and I'm going to click on the format. It's going to have, I don't want any decimals. Let's see. Oh. Okay, it should be 0. Yeah, I can do that too. Here we go. So it gives me the average age based on the ethnicity, the mass indicator, and the race, and the gender, sorry. So this is just an example of reports that I thought would be meaningful to you. If you don't want the ethnicity, you just right-click on it and remove it. So here we have by gender and math flag, the average age. So you see how we were able to change the totals. We had originally the number of clients that said they were math users by gender, and we changed that to look at the average age of math users by gender. And we did that by going to the level of the client to find the age, because that's where we're entering the birth date of the client. Are you overwhelmed yet? No? Good, so I continue. You see how we have been able to create all of these reports today? So I'm going to ask you, we have 10 minutes left. I can show you some more matrix. I can show you some more charts. I can show you also how to create some calculation fields. If you're ready, I can show you some more complex, how to do some calculation fields. You ready for that?
Could you show us how to maybe group intakes or something like that by week?
Sure. So we're going to create a new report. So now you want to think about what it is that you are looking for. So you're looking for, you said intake. Are you talking about the start of the episode or the GIPRA intake?
You could just pick one for example's sake.
So let's do the GIPRA intake. So you have your GIPRA intake. You're going to the GIPRA entity. So if you choose GIPRA, you go to the GIPRA entity. If you choose intake, you go to the intake entity. That's as simple as that. And I'm going to the date. And so here I have interview date. When I look at interview date, it is giving me, like SSRS is giving you the day, the month, the year, and the quarter. So it's true that there is no week. I was hoping there would be week in there.
Yeah, that's why I asked for week. Is there any way to get to that increment? Maybe through an expression or something else?
Yeah, you could create a field that will be a count of 5 days, of 7 days.
Okay.
What we could do also is, we could do that and maybe have it as a matrix, so that then you can expand 1 week to another and have it with a month, and then drill down by week.
Okay. Could we do that?
Okay, so which one do we want to do? We want to, You should have sent that to me before we go to the meeting. We are going to have. So what do you want to see about these intakes?
I want to know how many there are per provider per week.
There's actually a report like that in WITS for the weekly interviews, but we can reproduce that in SSRS as well. So what we want to do is, you said, by provider, the number of clients that have a GIPRA intake.
Yes.
So the first field that you will want to see in your column is the provider. And so we said the provider, the number of intakes. So you see, you just do GIPRA intakes. And maybe I should have done that as a matrix. I will have my date. That would be interview day. So when I run that report, it is giving you the day, and then you need to put the month and the year. I was hoping that SSRS would give me some better fields for that. So I'm doing the month of the year 2011. Yeah, I think a matrix would be nicer to make that happen. So for the formulas, I wanted to show you something that was simpler, but so for the formula, what you would want to do is you would want to use the date and time function. And so you have that week function that you have in there. So you may want to use the week, and you want to use the date of the interview. If I go back to my entity, I have that new field now, that is the interview week. So by week, by agency, or is it agency by week? You see how you can change the order of your columns? So here you see by agency, the number of your week, and the number of intakes. So maybe what you would want is to have the year, or because you have the number, that's the number of the week number, you know what I mean?
Okay.
So maybe you would want to have the year in there for it to make sense to you. And maybe you want agency to be after that, so you can have and if you don't like this total by year, you just remove the subtotal. You play with it. Does that work for you?
This might be sort of out of the scope of this training, but we're using Report Builder 2.0, and the week function doesn't seem to work when you type it in. I'm not sure why. It says it's not declared.
I believe, okay, so where are you? In which state?
Oregon.
Oregon? Okay, so you have a different version?
We have Report Builder 2.0.
I believe that's what I have in there. Okay, we can look into that.
Okay.
Oh, I have 1.0. Okay. We can look into that with you.
Okay, thank you.
So that would be one way of doing it. We can organize it also differently on the matrix. But all of the, so really what I wanted to, the message I wanted to give to all of you guys today is think about the reports that you need, the data, think about all of the data that you have in your system. Like your providers are entering data on a daily basis. And there is a lot of data out there. And you want to know what they have entered, if it's right. You want to see how many clients are served. You want to monitor your program. And with SSRS, you will be able to start by running some very simple reports to see what's going on. I'm not expecting you to be very efficient with it and build all of these complex queries right now, but you can get started with just this simple report of the number of GIPRAs by agency on a certain date. And this is something that now you know how to do. So think about the reports that you want, and if you want something, then the next step is, okay, I'm going to ask myself a question. What do I want to see? I want to see how many intakes were created on a certain date by provider agency. So then you think, okay, where is that data collected in my WITS VMS? Or if it's the number of GIPRA intakes, the data is probably entered in the GIPRA intake, right? So based on where the data is entered, then you want to look for your category in your list of entities in the report builder, and then look within that category. Go down to the fields level and look at the fields that you have. Take some time, look at these fields, and then select the one that that you will need. And then think, when you're doing these tables, I know you're going to start with tables because that gives you more straightforward data to start with. With your tables, then add these columns and then move them around to change the grouping of your columns and group your data a little differently. Then you can start adding filters to your reports if you want to see the report only for one agency. You can add new fields, and you know, there are a lot of different ways to create these fields. We just created a couple today. So after you start creating these reports, getting familiar with how to create reports, getting familiar with where the data is collected, then you will be able to take on some more complex reports that you will be able to build. But I really encourage you to start playing with it, thinking about the reports that you need, run some very simple reports, and practice. Practice and practice. We're here at FEI to help you. I'm mentioning that at each and every work call. If you know already how you want to measure waste, fraud, and abuse, we have said several times that we will be building some canned reports for all of you guys. So don't hesitate to send us your ideas on how to measure waste, fraud, and abuse, and we will be building canned reports this fall for you guys. That will be maybe complex reports, but we can make sure that everybody is using the same one. So don't hesitate to send that our way. And when you get started with SSRS on your own, if you have a problem somewhere, call us, call the help desk, and we'll be happy to help you. So SSRS is is that Microsoft tool that comes with the license of your database, the SQL Server license. So this is not a tool that we are developing at FEI, but we are getting familiar with that tool, and we're proposing that to you so that you can leverage all of the data that your providers are entering on a daily basis. We believe it's a very good tool for you to monitor your program. So that's why we give that to you, make that available to you, and we're ready to help you with it. So thanks everyone for your attention today. I hope you had a lot of information, that you will remember that. If you don't, you can listen to that recording again on the portal, on the work forum. There will be a link very soon that we'll make available so you can listen to it. And you should already have the user guide, or if not, just contact your project manager. They can send it to you again. And that's pretty much it. Good luck. Have fun with SSRS. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.